What a pleasure to be invited to podcast at the 2025 Future Leaders Summit at the National Conference Center in Leesburg, Virginia. Hosted by Susan Milhone and Tony Bertolino of PHCC Virginia, the conference featured an apprentice contest, a day of educational sessions, and a trade show. I wish you could have been there, but maybe the next best thing is to get to know my next guest.
Roger, finally, welcome to Dennis the Apprentice Behind the Windshield
I see this.
at PHCC's Future Leadership Summit.
Mm-hmm.
We spoke at lunch.
I did.
Awesome. That was a great talk, talking about apprentices.
You know, I love what I get to.
We don't have this future leadership concept in Washington. Do you have it in Texas?
Not that I'm aware of.
These kids are all super bright. Their eyes are shining. They're excited. They're engaged. And I combat constantly. People are saying that we can't find young people. They're everywhere.
I was going to say we can find them. We're not looking for them in the right way.
Yeah.
I think, you know, I've talked to PHCC before. I've been talking to PHCC for years, and you know, my thing is, and you heard me say it in there a while ago. For the first 17 years of my career, I didn't even know about PHCC. Yeah, and then I get into the union. I do a bunch of different things. I start finding out about these organizations like PHCC, and I'm like, why did I never know about this? Best practice groups. Didn't even know what they were. Now I reach out to them for sponsorships, and they're like, oh, no, we market our own way. It's like, yeah, but nobody's ever heard of you.
Yes. Yes.
Think about this. How many members, and let's say member companies, are in PHCC national? You have any idea?
Not very many.
Like, if you were guessing.
You mean like how many nationwide are members?
How many companies do they have that are members of PHCC?
I don't actually have that number. I should know that number, but I don't.
You should. You should.
Do you know?
No, last time I checked, it was under 3,000
Yes.
nationwide.
Well, in Washington, we have over 4,000 plumbing and HVAC contractors, and we have like 66 members at PHCC. And so I literally, when I cold call contractors, they don't know what PHCC is.
And that blows my mind.
Yeah.
Because to me, especially with products like QSC and things like that, companies that really want to grow, they grow through knowledge. They grow through learning best practices. And the companies that don't want to grow, and I'm not saying they don't want to, everybody wants to grow, but they don't know that the tools are out there, and they don't know how to get a hold of the tools, how to use the tools.
You know, I know what that's like. So my father-in-law, Gene Johnson, was a great plumber, started Gene Johnson Plumbing. So I come in, I'm not a plumber. I was going to become a plumber, and then he had a heart attack 3 months after I got there. So I got pushed right into leadership, you know, selling the estimates, getting the work going, and I got right into management. I didn't get to stay in the field and run the tools. But I knew I didn't know what I was doing, and so I hunkered in and to learn what I was doing first. And it took me 15 years. I didn't realize if I would have reached out to fellow contractors in PHCC and told them my situation, hey, Dad just had a heart attack, I got to figure this all out, there would have been a host of people that would have put their arms around me and helped me out.
And then when you say, what do I owe you for this? We're like, look, don't worry about it. You're good. What can I do to help you? What do you need?
Yes, they would have helped. And so I see that now, like when 2 weeks ago, I was cold calling contractors and saying, I just want you to make you aware of, there's an association of plumbers. There's a website of plumbers by plumbers, you know, you shouldn't be out there alone. They'd never heard of it before. They want to get off the phone, and they're just kind of like this one-man truck guy, and it's kind of me against the world. And it's going to take them forever to grow. They won't be able to attract people because they're not growing. And then they'll become bitter. This is what I discover. We get a lot of older, bitter people. And if they would have reached out and got some help, they would have understand the blessings of being a business, the blessings of the plumbing industry. You know, you hear these plumbers say, I don't want my kids to be plumbers. Where is that coming from?
It's ignorance.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that bad in any way. When kids come to me and say, oh my God, I want to get into the trades, but my mom won't let me be a plumber.
Yeah.
My dad won't let me be a plumber.
Yeah.
And it's like, why not? And they're like, well, because they're uneducated. They don't make good money. They have to work hard. And it's like, I know more people in the trades that are millionaires than I know that are in any business in the world and millionaires. And I travel around the country speaking to entrepreneurs, speaking to coaches, consultants, trainers. And it's just not there.
Just a couple of weeks ago, I heard someone say they wanted their kid to get a higher education. And I'm like, you don't think plumbing's a higher education?
They don't.
Like, if you look at a hydronic wall with a boiler and all that, whoever put that in is so smart.
You bet.
They can imagine it. They understand all the principles and codes that go into making it work. And then they can actually bring it out into the physical world to make it work. I mean, that's a brilliant person.
And take this. What about the plumber that can come in and act like Superman and find the leak under the slab and say, here's what it's going to take to fix it. Here's the 3 options we give you. We can make a hole right here in the middle of your floor, ruin your hardwood floors, tiles, pull back your carpet, whatever the case is. If it's a water line, we can possibly reroute it, tear up your sheetrock, whatever the case is. Or we can tunnel from the outside, which we do in Texas, and we don't damage your floor. You don't have any dirt, mud, anything like that inside your house. A lot of people, they don't even know what they don't even know. And when you start talking to parents, which I love to, and I tell kids sometimes, look, have your parents reach out to them.
Yeah.
I'll give you my number, and this ain't for you to call me, but I'll give you my number. Have your parents call me and let me talk to them about you wanting to become a plumber.
Right.
And they're like, oh, you won't have any luck. It's like, you know what? Tell them to go watch this video first.
Yeah. Try me.
It's the opportunities are out there. And it's funny because the kids getting into the trades right now, these are the entrepreneurs in 5 to 10 years. And these are going to be millionaires. Well, yeah, for sure.
Are you familiar with Traction, the EOS? Oh my goodness. EOS, the entrepreneurial operating system.
Okay, now I'm familiar with EOS.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Okay.
The book Traction.
Okay.
I'm
familiar with the book.
We implemented that with our business. We have an EOS coach and everything, and it made a huge difference. And I think a lot of these guys, back to the entrepreneurs, it's not just starting a business. You have to know what to do next and get traction and making progress.
And to me, that look, I love what PHCC is about. I hate that more people don't know about it. I've talked to PHCC on local levels. PHCC Texas reached out and asked me to speak at their event and do some things with them. But I also talked to PHCC on the national level and have been for about 5 years. And I'm always like, look, if we tell more people about it, more people will join. And they're like, yeah, but we need them to join before we can tell more people about it.
Yeah.
It's like, you're like a company saying, look, I need to make $1 million before I can advertise. Well, if you don't advertise, you're never going to make $1 million.
Yeah.
And the thing that I do get disappointed in PHCC about is this is not what you're teaching your members, but this is what you're doing.
Yes. We could go down a rabbit hole there.
You bet. But it's not just PHCC.
Yeah.
Best practice groups are the same way.
Yes.
I'm talking to 3 different best practice groups right now about what they're doing, how they're marketing, how they're advertising to grow. And they tell me, well, we need to prove this works before we do it. Really? Because you tell me when I join, hey, you need to spend 10% on marketing. You don't tell me to prove that it works first. Spend 10% on marketing and then adjust it, tweak it, modify it.
Roger, why is that? I see that in every association and best practice vertical like you're talking about. It's like they're full of business people that give up the business principles that got us the freedom to be able to volunteer on the association.
The business principles we're telling our members they have to do.
Somehow they don't apply to associations.
We're not doing them.
Yeah, I don't get it. How do we fix that? Roger, I know that
Maybe time for new leadership. I don't mean that bad, but it's like, look, I know that a lot of these groups I'm talking to do have new leadership in, and they're talking about how to make changes. There's a lot of old school people still in there that are like, look, social media doesn't work. Prove it.
Yeah.
How can you prove ROI on a Facebook video?
Right. Well, you can't prove a billboard works.
You can't.
How many calls did you get from the billboard? We have no idea. We just know that it got busier when we hit them up.
But that's the thing. They say, well, we don't know, but it got busier. So we know that works.
Yeah.
Okay, but does it still? I mean, how many people are driving down the road picking up their phone saying, ooh, let me search Fred's Plumbing.
Yeah.
Let me shoot the QR code when I go driving by. hey, everybody quit honking. Hold on, slow down. And guys, I'm not saying to do that. But I mean, everybody wants to prove that it works. Here's my deal. I'm getting 10 million views a month. It freaking works.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. So any tips just really quick on a like a lot of small shops, they complain about the young person being on the phone. Mm-hmm. And I say, well, don't complain about them being on the phone. Have them do something with their phone. Like have them take a video of yourself.
I was going to say, ask them what they're doing on the phone. They may be looking up a new way to do something.
Right.
I used to have an apprentice that literally, when we went out in the field and did something, he'd come in the next day and say, hey, I found 2 other ways to do that. Like, really? Tell me about it.
Yeah.
And every now and then I'd learn something. It's like, oh my God, why didn't I think of that?
Yeah.
Why aren't we doing that?
Yeah.
I need that tool.
Yeah. If they're zoning out on their phone and they're playing games, it's because we haven't given them something to do. Mm-hmm. Right. But oftentimes this phone is the most valuable tool in the toolbox.
It is. It's got the most knowledge. I mean, you have access to anything in the world. What was the show? And it popped into my mind real quick. Anyway, the guy's like, look, we have more information right here in our pocket than they had when they launched the first rocket ship.
Yeah. Yeah. I've heard that before too.
And it's like, it works. It really works. But you've got to find out, what are you doing on your phone? Now, we had to let go of a guy for playing Pokemon all day long. That's all he did. And brought him in, warned him. I said, dude, this is your last warning. And told the plumber, said, y'all got to tell me if you're doing it. About 2 weeks later, a customer calls me and says, look, one of these guys is working his tail off, but the other guy's just out there playing on his phone all day. And I'm like, oh my God. So I brought him in, and even the plumber, I said, dude, why didn't you tell me? He said, at least he's there. But he's not doing you any good. Why do we want him there?
Yeah. Yeah. It's up to us to hold the standard, right? Mm-hmm. We have to hold the standard. What's cool is when you hold the standard up, there are young people that will jump.
You bet.
And that makes all the difference.
You've got to let them know it's upfront expectations.
Yeah.
Here's what I expect from you. There's a company owner in Dallas. He owns a company that's doing, I think they're close to $200 million a year now. Wow. And literally, he is like, okay, here's the deal. These are my expectations. You show up on time. A lot of the 10 things I just talked about are on that list. Mm-hmm. You do this, you do this, you do this. Here's the uniform. This is what's expected. This is how you do this. This is how you do this. Is there anything on the sheet you can't do? And they're like, no. I said, okay. Did you sign the bottom of it? Because if we talk about this sheet again, it's going to be what things that you learn that you could possibly take to the new company to work with, yes, because you're not going to work here.
Yes.
And he's like, these are our standards.
And he's building, and he's growing a business on that.
You bet. And he's like, if you look, Dennis, I'll give you a chance right now. If you can't do these things, just tell me.
Yeah.
You don't have to come over here. You don't have to waste your time or mine.
Yeah.
Because somewhere down the road, there's going to be something here that if you decide you're not doing that anymore, our next conversation is going to be about where you work next.
Right.
And it will not be here.
Right. And what I liked about your list at lunch is everybody can do those things, right? So it's people don't do things because they can't or they won't. Mm-hmm. Right. And so you gave a list of things that people can do. So now it's a question of will you or won't you?
You bet.
And that's what your friends are talking
about. That's what it's all about.
Yeah. Very good. We could talk forever.
Oh, no, I completely get it. Look, if you want to grow your business, look at the things that you're doing wrong.
Right.
What do you allow? That's one of the biggest things.
We're scared. I went through that in my experience too, where I was scared to raise the standard because I might lose some people.
Okay.
But the higher standard increased people's pride in the company. Mm-hmm. Like it was scary, but when we did it, it got more exciting and people felt better about the company as we raised our standards. So
I completely agree.
Very cool. Roger, we'll keep you. Thanks for being on.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it.
You got it.
It's good to see you around all these trade shows. I love what you're doing. The information's great. You're always on point. It's no BS. You're just like, look, here's what it's all about.
I love the trades.
Love what you're doing.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you, brother.
Well, that's a wrap. I hope you got a hint of how great the conference was and how bright the future is, with so many young and talented apprentices and so many industry leaders dedicated to help them find success in the plumbing trade. Stay tuned for the next Future Leaders Summit and get involved. You'll be glad you did.